This is our week-long trip on the MSC Virtuosa, cruising from Palma to Southampton in July 2025. This was only our second cruise ever, so we didn't have much to compare it to besides our last cruise with Princess. Very different experiences to say the least. Built in 2021, the Virtuosa can hold up to 6,300 passengers and 1,700 crew, making it one of MSC's largest ships. We wanted a Mediterranean-type cruise that fit with the kids' school schedule, and at over £1,000 less than the next cheapest option, this one seemed like it was the one for us. As the ship was sailing out of Spain, we flew from London to Palma the day before embarkation. Now, most of the reviews I read were MSC was not worth booking unless you do the Aurea class or the Yacht Club, which are the higher tier, more expensive levels. We booked the Fantastica level, which is one above their lowest level Bella and one below Aurea. But to be honest, I'm not really sure what this tier offered. We got to choose our own room. I guess that was it. Also, I read customer service is not great. Food is mediocre, often served cold when it should be hot, or hot when it should be cold. But for the price we paid, it was worth trying it out for ourselves. The cruise did not get off to a good start for us, honestly. We thought we would be adventurous and walk from our hotel to the port, but after walking a half an hour in Spanish July heat, we were sweating profusely and just ended up giving up and taking a taxi. When we finally got to the ship, we were wondering, did we make a mistake booking a Mediterranean cruise in the summer? Perhaps. But once we got to the correct terminal, check-in was super easy and fast, maybe less than 10 minutes. There were not that many of us boarding, which I found out later was because we were actually boarding the ship during the middle of a 14-day cruise that started a week earlier than ours. We got to our room around noon, I would say, and our room was cleaned and ready for us. We would have to wait a few more hours for our luggage, but we packed most of what we needed in our backpacks, like swimming suits for the boys and flip-flops. First, we went straight to the buffet after dropping our stuff off. One of the only good things I heard about MSC was they have amazing pizza and mozzarella balls, all made fresh on the ship. Oh boy, was that true. By then we were starving from a morning of walking and sweating in Spanish summer heat and got us a few platefuls of pizza and mozzarella. So good. Better than most pizza I've had in London. It tastes close to New York pizza, honestly. Many people say avoid the buffet as soon as you board a ship, but luckily for us, even though we just got on, it was actually a port day for the rest of the passengers, so the ship felt relatively empty. Onward to the pool for the boys. As it was a port day, the kids' pool area wasn't as rammed as we thought it was going to be. There was a perfect little shallow pool to play in with some cool splashing and squirting equipment. The kids really loved it. The kids' pool area is part of Savannah Water Park, which is in addition to Virtuosa's 3 other pools. The water park has 3 water slides. There are 2 you can go on with an inflatable ring, either as a single or a double, or the other with no extra equipment. Our younger one, at 5 years old, didn't make the cut, as anyone younger than 7 is not allowed on the big slides. You also need to be at least 107 centimeters or 42 inches for the 2 slides with the inflatable rings, and 122 centimeters or 48 inches for the tall spiral slide. Also, I think they use salt water for the pools. The water tasted very salty. The whole water park was, for the most part, really fun. There was rarely a queue to get on the slides, and it never felt overcrowded. However, the one bummer we encountered was sometimes when the ship was moving, it would randomly spurt out bits of soot from the funnels. As the water park was directly behind the funnels, there would be small bits of black crud dropping and smearing onto the ground. Something didn't feel entirely safe about this. I don't know if something was wrong, or that's just a normal occurrence when the ship is moving. Kinda gross. After some splashing around, we had our 4:30 safety presentation in the theater where we saw only a handful of people. Looks like only about 30 passengers got on board at Palma, including us. So far, I couldn't see what the problem was about MSC, as everything was working for us. The size of the ship alone was enough to dazzle us. One thing that was really cool about the ship was the Galleria, which is sort of the main artery of the ship, connecting the forward and aft with this huge curved LCD ceiling with moving images that would change every day. It felt like we were in a futuristic shopping mall. It did not feel like we were in the middle of a cruise ship at sea at all. Another thing that was also cool and oddly fascinating was the famous Swarovski staircase in the atrium, literally a staircase filled with crystals. It really was a prime example of the glitzy, shiny, sparkly decor of Virtuosa. It really gave Las Vegas vibes. It was also fascinating to go up and down the stairs, watching all the sparkly crystals under your feet. Now on to our cabin. We were in room 8014 towards the very front of the ship. We booked a balcony cabin for 4 people, so we had a king-size bed and the kids had a bunk bed that pulled out of the sofa, which they loved. Our balcony was unexpectedly huge. We didn't know our room would come with such a spacious balcony. You could easily fit 4 chairs and a table there. But one drawback to this was our balcony had a solid railing or wall. It wasn't a glass balcony like most of the rest of the ship. This made it a bit difficult for our kids to see down to water level, as they had to get right up to the top of the railing to look over. But the balcony door did have a good safety latch that was located pretty high up and out of reach of the kids. On a side note, MSC does not have free movies. They have a couple basic channels like BBC 1, 2, and 3, and a few other UK channels. There was MSNBC or CNN, one of them as well. Now, we downloaded our movies and shows for the trip beforehand. I heard that you could mirror your device to the TV, but that didn't work for us. Titanic was playing on TV. Lucky for us, really fitting for our first day of cruising. The bathroom was great too. Clean, great water pressure, very good drainage, and you didn't get that impending puddle of shower water rising towards your ankles. They also had a shower door rather than that yucky shower curtain that sticks to your legs swimming in the shower puddle. I was a bit worried that having our room so close to the front of the ship meant that we would be feeling more movement and waves, but this ended up not being an issue at all. I was a little wary after reading about the Bay of Biscay between Spain and France, known to be rough, especially during storms. Luckily, we had great weather, very calm seas. There was no difference sailing through the Bay of Biscay and any other waters. We didn't notice a thing. One thing I wanted to mention that was a huge bonus for us was that our balcony faced some amazing sunsets. If you're choosing a room on a cruise ship, one small tip that I'm going to save in my pocket for next time is to choose a side of the ship that faces west, wherever your trip is headed. This means you'll get some great sunsets coming right into your cabin. I'm not a morning person, so watching the sunset is much more preferable than watching the sunrise. One unfortunate thing that happened to us, which had the potential of ruining a chunk of the cruise, was we were told on the second to last day of our trip that there was a leak in our bathroom. We didn't notice anything, but our cabin steward noticed a wet spot outside of our cabin in the hallway. They told us to pack up our stuff and move rooms, as they needed to do some repairs in the plumbing. I was bummed. It was 9 o'clock at night. My husband was coming down with a cold. I had to pack up our entire cabin to move out with just one more day left of the cruise. This also meant having to get new cruise cards, which are going to be our keys to our new cabin. But honestly, the crew, everyone we interacted with during this whole ordeal were super nice. It was unfortunate and annoying, but it couldn't be helped. We moved from deck 8 to deck 11 to an almost identical room, but with one small difference. The balcony was a fair bit smaller, but it did have glass walls so we could actually see through to the water. Despite the inconvenience, at least we got to experience 2 different rooms in 2 different parts of the ship on one cruise. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the crew were kind enough to give us some MSC merch for us and the kids for our troubles. That helped to ease the blow a little bit. Now, on to the most important part of the cruise, the food. Like I said before, I did not read that many great reviews of MSC's food. Honestly, I thought it was pretty good. We ate mainly between the buffet and the main dining room, and the food was fine. It wasn't haute cuisine, but nothing was actually bad. The pizza, like I said before, was amazing, and the rest of the food was pretty good too. We never had a bad meal on the ship. We're not food snobs, but we like to be a little adventurous sometimes. There was enough variety. They also had the usual staples throughout, so there was something for everyone. The buffet had a vegan section, had a kids section, had a wellness section, and of course, the pizza station, among the other cuisines. One of the criticisms of the buffet I read was there was not enough seating for a ship that size, that the buffet is not laid out in a way that can accommodate large numbers of people. Sure, the buffet was crowded during peak hours, but we found there was always room to sit, especially as the seating goes all the way back to either side of the kitchens. Pizza was pretty much served around the clock, and even when the buffet was shut, if they were preparing for the next meal, there were always a few stations open for little nibbles. The times were breakfast from 6:30 to 11:30, lunch 12 to 3:30, dinner 6 to 9:30, and midnight snack 10:30 to 1:30. We would often come to the buffet for a little midnight snack. They would close off a good chunk of the buffet during these times, but there was always plenty to snack on. It got surprisingly busy at night. Everyone likes a midnight snack. Besides the pizza, one thing we couldn't get enough of was the fruit. I don't even eat that much fruit, usually, but it was apparently something the ship did really well. The fruit was delicious. It probably helped that it was the middle of summer, so anything cold and juicy tasted good. Kids ate tons of watermelon. The pineapple was delicious. The husband ate loads of melon. There was even a fruit night where they loaded up the buffet with an elaborate display of all kinds of tropical fruit. One curious thing about the buffet was the drink station. They had the usual apple and orange juice, but they also had grapefruit juice. I mean, who serves grapefruit juice? It's such a random juice to serve, but I really like grapefruit juice, so it worked for me. They also had this juice called Ace. It was my first time seeing it. Apparently, it's a mix of orange, carrot, and lemon juice. I had to look this up. It's called Ace juice because it has vitamins A, C, and E. It wasn't bad. The husband liked it. He had a glass of it at almost every meal along with his pizza. Now on to the main dining room. I was a bit hesitant to eat our dinners in the main dining room, as on our last cruise, it was a bit of a headache to eat at a proper restaurant every day with the kids. Sometimes it gets a bit stressful eating with the kids in public because of tantrums, acting out, fights, or fidgeting. On our last cruise on Princess, we preferred having dinners in the buffet, especially with the kids. The buffet usually has a much more relaxed, casual atmosphere, and the kids can actually see the food before they eat it, so there's no guesswork of will the kids like what they order from the kids' menu. Also on Princess, I don't think the kids' menu changed at all, and what they did order was not that great. It was dry, bland, and boring. I get it, lots of kids are picky eaters and have an underdeveloped palate, but it would be nice if there was the option of having a bit more exciting kids' food. However, this was not the case at all on the Virtuosa. We ended up having most of our dinners in the main dining room, specifically the Blue Danube restaurant, one of the 4 main dining rooms. The kids' menu, although had your basics like burgers and hot dogs, it was different every day. The food was pretty good for kids' food. It wasn't super bland, a bit more interesting ingredients, and also the portions were pretty big, sometimes bigger than the adult portions. It definitely helped that each course came out pretty quickly. It didn't leave the kids idle and bored between courses, which is usually a recipe for disaster. That's when they start getting fidgety and annoying. The kids ended up liking having dinners in the dining room. It definitely feels fancier than the buffet, so it makes you feel like it's a special occasion, as opposed to eating for fuel like you might at a buffet. The kids ate chocolate cake for dessert almost every day at the restaurant, which was good as sometimes the kids just want a big old piece of cake, which you couldn't get at the buffet as they usually have those bite-sized, fancy-looking desserts like tiramisus and panna cottas. We also had great servers in the dining room. The service was really good, fast and friendly. Eating at the main dining room with the kids every day was not nearly as bad as I thought. We were sat in the corner of the dining room, not quite a window seat, but we could see out the window across the table next to us. Eating there always felt relaxed, quiet, and peaceful, a nice break from the buffet. Now on to the kids area. The play area is sponsored by Lego, so naturally, everything is Lego themed in Doremi Land with 4 separate play areas. They also have a separate basketball-type court for other activities, called the Sportplex, as well as an arcade, F1 racing, and bowling. You can leave your kids at the play area on port days if you want to go out without them. The staff will take your kids to eat at the buffet for lunch and dinner, as long as you let them know one day ahead of time. Play area also offers an open house where parents can come in and play every day between 12 and 3 p.m., which was nice as you got to see what the kids got up to in there. All play areas, except for the baby section, are open every day until 11, with a break during lunchtime. If your kid is 7 or older, they can sign themselves in and out of the kids area without a parent if they wished. This partnership with Lego worked especially well for our family because the kids are obsessed with Lego. Not having their Legos would be the only reason they might get homesick. So, of course, each play area had their own Lego building section. They even had a Lego parade several times throughout the cruise. Everything being Lego themed, we absolutely felt the pressure and gave in and got the MSC Lego ship from the gift shop. In the play areas we went to, they had tables for arts and crafts, a big screen to play video games, life-size Lego vehicles, and of course, organized activities run by the MSC staff. Our kids loved the play area. My older one said he wished he could have gone to the play area more often, but there wasn't enough time. With port days, going to the pool, meals, and the theater, how do you fit everything in? There's just too much to do. This brings me to the theater shows. One thing I read about MSC that turned out to be very true was their style of theater shows. This is in no way a complaint, but it was definitely a different style of shows than I've seen before. I read that because MSC has a very international clientele, they tend to shy away from narrative-driven shows to keep a large group of people with different language abilities happy. For example, we saw a show called Dirty Dancing Celebration, which was just song after song, number after number, without any narration or storyline of songs from the movie. Still a very good show, with very talented singers and dancers. We also saw a show called Same Same But Different, an acrobatic twin duo whose show centered around some really crazy juggling and circus-type tricks. The kids loved that show as it had a bit of slapstick comedy, and the performers knew exactly how to work the crowd. On MSC, you need to reserve seats to shows on the app or on any of the large screens scattered around the ship. They say to book early as some of the bigger shows get sold out. On our last night, they had a Michael Jackson tribute show, which was completely sold out by the time we got on the ship. But they said they released the unclaimed seats 5 minutes before the show, so we can just show up and, if we're lucky, claim a spot. So for this show, we got to the theater about 10 minutes before the show and were able to walk right in. There were plenty of seats still available, nobody was checking our reservations. It was no problem at all to get into a sold-out show. Similar format to the other shows, it was song after song without any narration or storyline. Still a really, really good show, very talented performers. There was one main Michael Jackson performer who lip-synced the lyrics, but more importantly, he got all the dance moves pretty perfectly. What I liked most about the show was actually their different takes on a few Michael Jackson songs, reinterpreting them in different styles and genres. There was this incredible pole dancer dancing to one of the songs who was defying gravity. It was crazy to see what she could do with a pole. They also did a salsa version of one of the songs, and those salsa dancers blew me away. Like, holy moly, they were of another world, gliding all over the stage. I wouldn't mind seeing an entire show of just those two. All in all, some really good shows. There was something there for everyone. Even though the reviews were true and that MSC shows are not as story-driven, I don't think that detracted at all from the quality of the shows. Honestly, I don't know why MSC has gotten so many bad reviews. We had a great time. The food was good, the service was good, the crew was friendly, it didn't feel as overcrowded as I thought it might be. We didn't feel like we were being upsold all the time, nobody bothered us to buy anything extra. We did have an issue with our cabin and had to change rooms. These things happen and it was dealt with in the best way possible. Now let's talk about the cost. We paid just under £1,900 for our family of 4 for the 7-day cruise. We did not get any drink packages or specialty dining or pay for excursions in the port. For about £270 a night for a 4-person room with a balcony, including food, entertainment, childcare, and of course transportation between cities. For what we got, I'd say it's very good value. Such good value, in fact, that we're looking to book another MSC cruise for next year. Final verdict is MSC gives great value for money, especially if you're traveling with kids. For this cruise, we sailed around Spain, starting from Palma, then on to Barcelona, Valencia, through the Strait of Gibraltar, onto Gijón, and then ending in Southampton. But more about these ports in another video.